Hello, Virgo. Welcome back to your space. Okay, so regret has a specific arrival time, not when the thing is happening, not in the middle of the taking for granted, not during the comfortable assumption that something will simply continue being available because it always has been. Regret arrives after, in the particular quiet, nothing can be done about it now, aftermath of realizing that something you had was real and that you treated the realness of it as though it were guaranteed, and that the guarantee has turned out not to have existed. Someone is in that arrival right now. Not fully after, not in the complete, irreversible, the door is permanently closed version of regret that has nothing left to do with itself except be carried. In the specific, something can still be done, but the window is not unlimited version. The version where the realization has arrived, but the consequence is not yet final. Where the understanding of what losing you would mean has landed with enough force to produce something besides regret, to produce alongside it the urgent, this needs to be addressed before it becomes the permanent version, motivation of someone who still has options and is finally, clearly understanding that the options will not stay open indefinitely. They have finally realized that is the specific phrase, and it deserves to be held for a moment before we move past it. Finally. Meaning not at the beginning, not when it would have been easiest, not before certain things happened that made the realization more costly than it needed to be. Finally, after the period of not realizing, after the time during which the understanding that should have been present earlier was somehow absent or suppressed or simply not yet formed into its complete shape, the finally is significant, because finally means something changed, something that was not previously present in their understanding of this situation has arrived. Something they were not seeing or were choosing not to fully or were successfully avoiding seeing with the particular human skill of not seeing things that would require uncomfortable action has become impossible not to see. They see it now. What losing you would mean, what it would actually specifically in the lived experience of their daily life cost them. And the seeing has done what seeing tends to do when the thing seen is genuinely significant. It has changed everything. Subscribe to this channel and drop the word regret in the comments right now. Because what I am about to walk you through, the full picture of this person's realization, what produced it, what it feels like from the inside, and what it is going to produce in terms of action is something you deserve to understand completely before it arrives at your door. Let me start with what they were doing before the realization. The specific internal state they were operating from during the period that preceded this moment of finally understanding. They were comfortable. That is the honest word for it. Not comfortable in the good sense, comfortable in the specific, slightly dangerous sense of someone who has become so accustomed to the presence of something valuable that they have stopped actively registering its value, who has moved from the conscious appreciation of something good to the unconscious assumption of it, from gratitude to expectation, from recognizing what they have to simply having it without much thought about what the having means or what its absence would feel like. This is a very human thing to do. Not a malicious thing, not the behavior of someone who does not care or who never cared. The natural, predictable, happens to almost everyone result of time and familiarity, producing a kind of perceptual blindness to the specific qualities of something that has been consistently present. We stop seeing what we see every day. We stop appreciating what we assume will continue. they stopped seeing you. Not completely, they were never indifferent, but they stopped seeing you with the full, clear-eyed appreciation that you deserve and that they were capable of in the early stages when everything was new and nothing was assumed. The specific things about you that had originally been remarkable became, through the comfortable distortion of familiarity, simply the way things are. Your warmth became expected rather than appreciated. Your loyalty became assumed rather than honored. Your specific, irreplaceable quality of presence in their life became background rather than foreground. And meanwhile, you were simply being who you are, showing up, contributing, being present in the ways that Virgo is present, thoroughly, attentively, with the specific quality of care and loyalty that most people encounter rarely, if ever, in a lifetime. Giving what you give, which is not small, without the giving being adequately registered. That is the before. The comfortable taking for granted, not fully seeing before. Now let me tell you what changed, what produced the realization, what cracked the comfortable, and let the truth of what they have and what they stand to lose come through. Something shifted in you, not a dramatic shift necessarily, not a confrontation or an ultimatum or a visible external breaking point that announced itself clearly as a significant moment. Something quieter than that, and in some ways more powerful. A shift in your energy, in your availability, in the specific quality of how you are showing up in the connection, or how much you are showing up, or how much of yourself you are bringing compared to what you have previously brought. You pulled back slightly or significantly. The degree belongs to your specific situation, but in some way, through some combination of having given enough without adequate return, and having finally allowed yourself to act on the awareness that the giving was not being met with the quality of presence and appreciation it deserved, you became less available than you were before, less present, less immediately reachable, less organized around the needs and the comfort and the convenience of someone who had not been organizing themselves around yours with the same consistency. And they felt it immediately with the specific something is different and I do not like it quality of someone who has just noticed the absence of something they had stopped consciously appreciating. The way you only fully understand what a constant background warmth was contributing to a room when it is gone and the room is suddenly noticeably, specifically colder. The coldness, the specific quality of your reduced availability making itself felt in the daily texture of their experience is what produced the realization. Not your words, not a conversation where you explained what you needed or how you had been feeling. The simple, undeniable, this is what it feels like without her evidence of the actual experience of your reduced presence. Experience is the most persuasive teacher. More persuasive than explanation, more persuasive than conversation, more persuasive than any amount of being told something. The experience of beginning to feel what losing you would mean, not as a hypothetical, but as a lived, daily, this is actually happening reality, has produced in them a quality of understanding that nothing else could have produced. What does the realization feel like from inside their experience? Let me describe it specifically because I want you to understand what is happening in them right now. It feels like waking up, the specific, slightly disorienting, how did I not see this quality of someone who has been operating from an incomplete picture of reality and who has just received the missing information. The missing information being the full and accurate understanding of what you are to them, what your presence actually contributes, what the specific, irreplaceable quality of you in their life has been doing for them, that they were not consciously tracking, but that their well-being has been quietly depending on. The waking up has an uncomfortable quality, not because the understanding itself is bad, the understanding is clarifying, which is ultimately good, but because it arrives with the awareness of how long they were not awake, of how many moments during the not awake period they failed to honor what they had, of how many times you showed up fully and they received it partially, of the gap between how they have been treating something valuable and how something valuable deserves to be treated. That gap is where the regret lives, not the distant, nothing can be done about it regret, the motivating kind. The kind that arrives when there is still time and produces urgency rather than resignation. This is not yet permanent, but it could become permanent and I need to do something about it. Urgency of someone who has just understood what the stakes actually are. They are afraid, not in the crisis sense, in the honest, I see what I could lose and I do not want to lose it sense of someone whose fear is completely proportionate to the value of the thing they are afraid of losing. The fear is the measure of the value. They are this afraid because you are this valuable, because losing you would be this significant. Because the version of their life without you in it, which they are now, thanks to your pulling back, beginning to experience in preview, is a noticeably, specifically, uncomfortably lesser version of their life. They do not want that version. They want the version with you in it fully, in the way you have been present at your most present, and in the way you deserve to be valued when you are present. Let me talk about something specific that the realization has produced in terms of how they see certain things retroactively. Because realization does not just change how we see the present, it changes how we see the past. It goes back through the accumulated history and rereads it with the new understanding. They are rereading, going back through the history of this connection with the new, accurate, I finally see what this is, understanding applied to moments they were only partially present for at the time. And what the rereading is producing is a picture of you that is significantly more vivid and more complete than the one they were working from before. They are seeing what you are doing, all the specific, detailed, no one was going to announce it, things you were doing all along that contributed to the quality of their life and the quality of the connection. The ways you showed up without making a production of showing up. The things you noticed and addressed and cared for without requiring acknowledgement for the caring. The specific loyalty of someone who did not waver when wavering would have been understandable. The patience of someone who kept showing up long past the point where a person with less commitment would have stopped. They are seeing all of it, perhaps for the first time in the full and clear way it deserves to be seen. And the seeing of it is producing something in them that is part gratitude, part remorse, and part the specific, determined quality of someone who has decided that they are going to be different. That the rereading has shown them who they have been in this connection and who they want to be in it, and that the gap between those two things is something they now intend to close. Not through grand gestures necessarily, through the consistent, daily, this is how I want to treat something I value quality of someone who has finally woken up and who intends to stay awake. What does this mean for you practically? What does it mean that they have finally realized and that the realization has produced in them the urgency and the motivation I have been describing? It means something is coming, a reaching. a specific, intentional, I need to address this reaching that is going to have a different quality from any previous reaching in this connection. Because this reaching is not coming from the comfortable place. It is not the reaching of someone who assumes they're welcome. It is the reaching of someone who understands that their welcome is not guaranteed and who is aware, for perhaps the first time with full clarity, that what they are reaching toward is something they need to earn rather than simply reclaim. That awareness that the welcome is not guaranteed, that you are not simply going to be there because you have always been there, that the version of this they want requires them to actually show up in a way that has not always characterized how they have shown up is the most significant thing the realization has produced. Because it means the reaching that is coming is not careless. It is not the casual, assume all is fine reaching of someone who has not understood the stakes. It is intentional, aware of what it is asking for, prepared to offer something in return that is more commensurate with what you have been offering than what they have offered historically. They are coming with something different. That is what I want you to understand before it arrives. The quality of what is coming toward you from this person is not the same as what has been coming from them before. The realization has changed something. The understanding of what they stand to lose has reorganized their priorities in a specific and visible way. And the reaching that is coming is going to communicate that reorganization clearly enough that you will feel the difference between this and the previous version. I want to talk to you now about what you do with this, how you receive what is coming, what the most honest and most self-respecting response to a person who has finally realized looks like. The first thing I want to say is that you do not have to make this easy for them, not because they deserve punishment. That is not what I mean, and it is not a useful frame, but because the specific, comfortable ease of someone slipping back into a connection they temporarily allowed to diminish without being required to demonstrate the change they are claiming is not in your interest. Ease is appropriate when something has been genuinely addressed. It is premature when the addressing has just begun. Let the reaching be a reaching. Let them cover the distance rather than meeting them halfway before they have demonstrated they understand why the distance exists. Not permanently, not an endless withholding designed to produce suffering. A reasonable, self-respecting, I am going to pay attention to whether the change is real, period, of receiving what they bring without immediately returning to the previous configuration simply because the reaching is happening. The previous configuration is not where this needs to return. The previous configuration is what produced the taking for granted, that produced the realization, that is now producing the reaching. Returning to it without addressing what was happening within it would simply restart the cycle. What you deserve and what the most honest version of this reconnection requires is a new configuration. One where the things that were being taken for granted are actively, consistently, demonstrably not taken for granted. Where the value of your presence is reflected in how your presence is treated rather than just in how much it is wanted when it begins to withdraw. Watch for the consistency, not the initial motivated by fear, I am trying to win you back consistency of the first days or weeks. The sustained kind. The kind that continues after the immediate urgency of almost losing you has faded and the comfortable temptation to stop working for something that seems secured has returned. Because that is the test. not whether they can show up beautifully when the stakes are high and visible, whether they can show up consistently when the stakes are less immediately apparent. Let me close with something honest, something that has been sitting in the energy of this reading from the beginning, and that I want to say plainly. The realization is real. What this person is feeling right now, the fear of losing you, the understanding of your value, the urgency and the motivation and the intention to be different, is genuinely, currently, actually happening in them. These cards are not showing me a performance. They are showing me a real person who has finally seen clearly what they had been seeing incompletely, and who has been significantly changed by the clarity. But clarity alone does not change a pattern. Intention alone does not change a pattern. Feeling the regret and wanting to do things differently and reaching toward you with the motivation of someone who finally understands the stakes, all of that is real, and all of that matters, and none of it is the same thing as actually being different in the sustained, through all circumstances, even when you are not at risk of being lost, way that a genuine change in pattern requires. You get to watch for the pattern. You are allowed to let the reaching land without immediately giving back everything that was previously available. You are allowed to let the quality of what they consistently offer over time be the thing that determines how much of yourself you reinvest. You are allowed to be moved by the realization without being swept into a restoration that happens faster than the evidence of genuine change can accumulate. This is not coldness. It is self-respect expressed as wisdom. Knowing the difference between someone who has realized and someone who has changed is one of the most important things a person can know. The realization is the beginning. The change is what it is supposed to produce. Watch for the change. Let it prove itself over time. And when it does, when the consistency is real and the showing up is sustained and the treating you as valuable is demonstrated rather than just claimed, let yourself receive it fully. Let the investment come back. Let the connection be what both of you are capable of, making it at your best. Because at your best, both of you genuinely showing up, this is something worth having. The realization has arrived. What happens next is up to the quality of what follows it. Tell me in the comments whether this found you somewhere real today. Drop regret if the specific quality of what I described, the finally realizing, the retroactive seeing, the fear of the actual loss rather than the hypothetical one matched something you have been witnessing in someone connected to you. Tell me if the shift in their energy has already been making itself felt. Tell me if you have been navigating the question of how much to receive and how much to wait to see what is real, because that question is the right one to be asking. And the answer arrives through time and consistency rather than through hope alone. Watch carefully and trust what you actually see rather than only what you want to see. I will see you in the next one, Virgo.